We're here at Moit's Motorcars again today. We're going to run you guys through the actual testing procedures for the first time of a torsional twist and a beaming test. That'll allow us to form a baseline on exactly how the factory chassis performs, and then that's something we can cross-reference to the improvements of the Roadster Shop chassis. We're fortunate enough to have a good friend of ours lend us his immaculate original 67 Camaro. When you're doing such extensive modifications like we are on the Customs for Cancer 68 Camaro build, there's certain procedures and protocol that we need to follow in order to gain compliance. We need to ensure that there's no variation with the car once it's on the test rig. This is the front shock in here inside the spring. So we're going to drop that out and replace it with this steel member up inside.
So we're doing the beaming part of a beaming and torsion test. What we've done is set up a series of dial gauges under the vehicle.
We're going to load the vehicle up and we'll measure these dials again, and that'll show how much deflection we've got.
We're fortunate enough to borrow over 600 kilos of grout bags here. We're going to load that into the 67 and check on our results.
Now the reason we do it on this original car is to provide a baseline so that when we modify the vehicle, or modify another vehicle, fit the new chassis, we can do the test again and make sure that we're at least as strong, I expect significantly stronger, than this base vehicle.
Pulling the back seat out of one of these cars, you come across some pretty awesome things. It's a Kmart receipt from the 25th of September 1973, and this here is probably a bit of a keepsake. It looks like a key holder or something. It's a genuine Chevrolet piece, and it's from La Howe Chevrolet, West Shore, Clovis, California. So we'll keep those aside. We'll put them in the center console for him, and he'll be able to hang on to those things.
That gauge has shown we've deflected just on 1 millimetre, which is pretty extraordinary for a car of this age. This is the best jig I've seen. So we record, measure at the ends on top of the stand, really just looking for if there's been any deflection within the apparatus itself, within the jig. And this is a very solid jig. And looking at this first gauge, we've had none, which is unusual. So this one's actually moved 0.004 of an inch, which is nothing. So just quickly eyeballing those results, we've deflected pretty uniformly across the length of the car and even side to side, which is exactly what you hope for and really says something about how good this particular car is.
So the boys are just setting up for the torsional test now. So these are the pedestals that we made in-house here. They'll bolt to the stub axles, front and rear. Then they go down and bolt to these huge I-beams across the front and rear here. The rear is actually fixed to the ground to stop any movement within the chassis at all. And then what we're going to do, we have a center pivot here, and we apply some loads out here. So the load that's applied out here is an equation that is put together within the national code, and it's based around the GVM of the vehicle and the wheelbase. You put that into an equation and it tells you exactly how much load to put out here. What that will do is it'll apply torsional, like twisting load to the front half of the chassis, and then we're going to record that down the sill panel with some dial gauges on both sides. So we're at the end of the torsion test right now, and we've applied 750 pounds to a point that we work out as 2 metres out from the pivot point of the front axle centre line. And then Peter's walking his way around and he's going to take a lot of measurements from the dial gauges under the sill panels and the four corners of the jig to the car to see exactly how much deflection we've got.
I think this is a remarkably solid car, given its age. The movement is not massive. The jigs work really well, so one of the things we check is whether the solid mounts at the rear have moved at all, and they haven't. Nothing appreciable or measurable anyway, which is unusual. The proof is in the pudding, of course. This is our baseline. We'll compare it to a modified vehicle in a little while, but this is a very good base car.
So initial testing is finished. Surprisingly, the 1967 Camaro handled itself really, really well. We move on to the second stage now, which is the Customs for Cancer Camaro. It's back from panel work. We've got our Roadster Shop chassis here, ready to install. We'll finish that build. I can't wait to see the difference that chassis makes.